Today we're going to cook something a little bit different. Welcome along to Barbecue Life, where great barbecue doesn't cost a fortune. Today we are cooking a barbecue sauce, and in that barbecue sauce we're going to be putting some homegrown rhubarb. So if you're not a rhubarb fan, it doesn't completely overtake the sauce itself, but it is there as a bit of a undernote flavour towards the end. So it may not be for everybody, but I do recommend giving it a go because it's quite a rich barbecue sauce, and it's really going to help cut through the fat of some of your heavier meats and things like that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our rhubarb prepped. So I've picked a couple of stalks from the garden. We've got a nice little rhubarb plant growing just opposite the shack. This is the second lot I've had out of it this year, so it's been quite a good year for the rhubarb. So we could chop the leaves off the end, chop the woody end off down by the root end, and then we're going to cut them into probably quarters, I think is best. Get them cut down, and then we're going to get them washed off just for any little nasties that might still been on there from the garden, and just get that put over to one side while we sort out our Weber. So I've lit the Weber kettle off camera today. I just used a chimney starter full of charcoal into the two charcoal baskets in the middle. If you haven't got charcoal baskets, then you can just pop your charcoal as a pile in the middle, and it'll work in exactly the same way. And then we're just going to put our rhubarb directly over the top of that really hot area, that direct cooking area, and just get a bit of char, and they're going to blister up, take on a bit of colour, and they will soften down. They won't take very long, so about 2 or 3 minutes on one side, roll them over, 2 or 3 minutes on the other side, and that is the rhubarb charred. The reason we char the rhubarb is because it adds an extra flavour dimension in there, and it's going to help add our smokiness to our barbecue sauce. So we're going to take these off, and we're going to get these into a food processor or a blender. So I'm just using the Ninja blender today. Pop that in, and then what we want to do is we want to take some cider and just give it a little splash in the bottom, and that's going to help free up the rhubarb in order for it to turn and blend down. The cider I'm using today is called Britpop, and it's from Alex James, the bass player of Blur. So people who know me personally or know me well through the channel know that I'm a massive music fan, and Britpop is my adolescence. So the whole Oasis versus Blur, I liked them both, but I wasn't allowed to say it. We went to go and see Blur at Wembley last month before, something like that. Time flies, doesn't it? Since then, it's come up on my Facebook that he's got a cider called Britpop, and that is why we're using this cider. I bought 6 of them, and they are absolutely fantastic. We are no way endorsed by Alex James, by Britpop cider, by Lafewaites, where you buy it from. I just absolutely love it. It's a proper sort of West Country tasting cider, like a scrumpy sort of flavour, and I'm absolutely in love with it, and it really works well with the rhubarb in this sauce. We've got that blended down. We need to get this into a small pan. You see it's quite frothed up from where that cider has got all the bubbles going in the blender. Into that we need to start adding our ingredients. So we're just going to dump them all in the top to make this barbecue sauce. So first of all, we start off with half a cup of tomato ketchup, 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of umami oomph powder, or if you don't want to be using that, then you can be using just salt and pepper as your standard seasonings. And then we're going to move a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, that works really well with the rhubarb again, half a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of honey, and then we just give that a good mix together. Really get that incorporated through, working it in from the side so that you're going to get a nice deep rich red colour. And we're going to pop that directly on that Weber kettle, directly where we had the rhubarb charring before, over that charcoal. We're going to get that bubbling away and reducing down so that we can get our desired thickness. So thickness comes down to personal preference. I like quite a thick barbecue sauce when I make them homemade, so I tend to boil it a bit longer. If you want something that's a bit runnier, so more for drizzling rather than dipping, then you're not going to need to reduce it down as much as I do. But once I've got a good bubble going underneath there, I'll move it over indirect, because there are a fair few sugars in this sauce, and we don't want anything to catch on the bottom of the pan in between stirrings. We just move it over to that indirect side, and there's still enough heat in that Weber to be keeping that reducing down. When the consistency I like is I can run a spoon through it and it just starts to fill in, so I see the very bottom of the pan for a split second just before it kind of folds in over the top of itself, and that's my desired thickness. If you want it a bit runnier, then you need no filling. If you want it really thick, then you want a filling, not to fill in over the top so quickly. What you do need to remember is when you cool this down, it will thicken even more. So the thickness that is in this pan is going to thicken a lot more than that once it is cool. And that is it. As I said, it's quite a rich barbecue sauce. It's really simple to make. If you don't like rhubarb, you can bin that off and you can stick some other fruits in there as well. Fruits in barbecue sauce work really, really well. So we could just go down an apple line and put the apple in there and put the cider on top, or you could use a fruity cider to go with the apple to enhance the flavour and things like that. So the options are quite loose. You just want a nice char on your fruit, get it nice and soft, and then get it into the blender. So we are going to be using this barbecue sauce in next week's cook, where we are making a pork fillet platt, and we'll go through that with you next week. But if you like what we're doing here at Barbecue Life, then please do subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.